hello to anyone who is participating in our rugby midrash session after the fact. We are glad that you are, and we hope that you'll let us know that you are at some point, so we have a sense of who's participating in this conversation, even if it's silent on your end. All right, so good to see you all, and let us pray. And this is an oldie, but a goodie. This is another day, O Lord. We know not what it will bring forth, but make us ready, Lord, for whatever it may be. If we are to stand up, help us to stand bravely. If we are to sit still, help us to sit quietly. If we are to lie low, help us to do it patiently. And if we are to do nothing, let us do it gallantly. Make these words more than words and give us the Spirit of Jesus. Amen.
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 Amen. Amen. So, friends, I believe that we are at verse 40 in the 8th chapter of Luke. Elin, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Okay. Zipping right along as we have been.
Zipping. Yeah.
Zipping.
It's a slow zip.
Slow zip. It's a very slow zip. It got stuck somewhere along the line. Last time we talked about the demons, the unclean spirits, whom Jesus exorcises out of the man and sends into the swine, who then run down the hill and into the lake to be drowned. And we talked about how tradition said that that was the only way, in fact, that evil spirits could be vanquished, could be disposed of, could be killed, was by drowning. So that's interesting. We had a long conversation about, well, what about the poor swine? What about the poor swineherds? Why is Jesus doing this? Did anyone have any dangling thoughts about that before we push on? Okay. Oh, Fred's off the screen, so okay.
Oh, I am?
Oh, you are. Oh, you're there. We can't see you. Oh, there.
Well, I was just kind of slouched back, comfortable.
Aha. Good posture, my friend. Good posture. There you are. You are there. Yay. Okay.
I
Oh,
want credit for being here.
yeah, you definitely get credit. You get your gold star for the day. Okay.
So you'd be speaking off the top of your head.
But
I love it.
all right. So this last section of Luke 8, I'm trying to get rid of that arrow and it's not cooperating. This last section of Luke 8 is really of a piece. And do you remember when we were studying the Gospel of Mark, how we talked about Mark and sandwiches?
Yes.
Does anyone want to just refresh our memories to what a Mark and sandwich is?
Story within a story.
Yeah. So one story is the bread. It brackets the central story, the meat. And the two texts are meant to be in dialogue with one another. Well, here Luke does the same thing. And he's drawing from, I believe this account appears in Mark. John, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
because this
even
is a
more
very Mark
detail, and
instruction.
he
Oh.
tracks it very closely.
Excellent. Thank you. I figured it was. I thought it was from my memory. I didn't actually go back and look, which I should have done. But it's structured like a Markan.
The door. Yeah.
So saying all that, it really is meant to be read as a piece. So would someone like to read all three of these paragraphs for us? And I can scroll for you.
Sure.
Thanks.
So it was, when Jesus returned, that the multitude welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And behold, there came a man named Jairus, and he was the ruler of the synagogue, and he fell down at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter about 12 years old, and she was dying. But as he went, the multitudes thronged him. Now a woman having a flow of blood for 12 years, who had spent all her livelihood on physicians and could not be healed by any, came from behind and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her flow of blood stopped. And Jesus said, "Who touched me?" When all denied it, Peter and those who were with him said, "Master, the multitudes throng and press you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus said, "Somebody touched me, for I perceived power going out from me." Now, when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him. She declared to him in the presence of all the people the reason she had touched him and how she was healed immediately. And he said to her, "Daughter, be of good cheer. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace." While he was still speaking, someone came from the ruler of the synagogue house, saying to him, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher." But when Jesus heard it, he answered him, saying, "Do not be afraid, only believe, and she will be made well." When he came into the house, he permitted no one to go in except Peter, James, and John, and the father and mother of the girl. Now all wept and mourned for her, but he said, "Do not weep, she is not dead, but sleeping." And they ridiculed him, knowing that she was dead. But he put them all outside and took her by the hand and called, saying, "Little girl, arise." Then her spirit returned, and she arose immediately. And he commanded that she be given something to eat. And her parents were astonished, but he charged them to tell no one what had happened.
Thank you. So, as John mentioned, this tracks pretty closely with Mark. So we have most of us have talked about these stories before. It's interesting to think about where Luke puts them and why he might copy them, repeat them, duplicate them so closely from Mark. But where do you all want to start? Those are my questions, but where do you want to start?
The one thing that strikes me most is, and it happens twice, he refers to Jairus as the ruler of the synagogue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That
Here in
seems
this translation, it says a leader of,
Mm.
not the ruler, but a leader.
Leader.
And in the New English,
Mm.
it is president of the synagogue. So
Let me look.
we do what we do in these cases. We go to the Greek.
That's right. We buy some electronics.
not sure it makes much difference.
No, I'm not either, but since it caught Fred's eye, let's see what it says here.
Official.
Come on.
Amy says overseeing congregational activities.
Ruler, commander, chief, leader, archon. So that implies someone with authority. Archon, excuse me. Let me just see. Comes from a root word. Archo, meaning to be chief, to lead, or to rule. Okay, so to Ray's point.
Is this used any other place in the Bible?
Uh,
Is this particular usage?
well, let's see. I like that you're asking the question. We didn't go down there. Yeah, it is. But look it's used most in Acts and Luke. So this is a word that Luke, as author of Luke Acts, is particularly interested in. I don't know what that might say to you, but there you go. It's a good question.
Well,
So-
I mean, Luke was a Greek of the Roman Empire. A ruler would not be necessarily an anathema to him, even in this context, perhaps.
Why is it significant that Jairus has a position of authority in the synagogue? Because I believe Mark says the same thing. I'll have to go back and look.
Yes, he does. He says
does
he
say-
was a ruler,
A ruler.
Mhm.
one of the rulers of the synagogue.
So if we
Well, I
think
think
about this ruler, official, leader, president, why is that important that he is a leader of the synagogue?
He's
I
not,
think
I
he
think it
has
will have
influence over whether they're faithful or not. He's a believer. He fell at Jesus's feet, and he has faith in Jesus, so he can influence his parishioners. And it's interesting, or congregants, and it's interesting at the end how Jesus says, "Don't tell anybody." He's seeing who has faith without being told.
Mm,
Um, but more interestingly to me is that when that woman, the bleeding woman, touches Jesus, he loses some power.
Well,
Mhm.
let's hold off
But
on
that's on a different.
no, I want to, we need to
Yeah.
talk about that for sure. Let's talk about Jairus first, since Fred pointed us there, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the central story. So don't lose track of that. John, you were going to say something as well. Sorry.
well, it's similar along the same lines that he was going to be a witness as a leader,
Hmm.
although told to
Yeah.
do nothing, clearly, demonstrating to one of the top people in the synagogue the power was going to be influential going forward.
Excellent. 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 So yes, so his position is germane, right? It really matters that he's a leader of the synagogue.
Mm.
And what does Amy Jill say about that, Elon? I know you said she says someone, how did she say it? Someone,
No, she said leader of the synagogue, either patron or overseeing congregational activities.
hmm. Does she say anything about why it's important that,
Mm-mm.
okay.
Mm.
Well, that's interesting too, the idea of him as a patron. If he's a patron of the synagogue, let's run with that for a second. What does that
Mm.
suggest?
He's supporting it.
He's
Yeah, and he's supporting, to me, he's supporting Christ's activities, Jesus' activities.
well, yeah.
Mm.
Except that Jesus isn't part of the synagogue.
No, but
So if
I
he's
was,
patron of the synagogue, what does that suggest about Jairus?
He was part of the power
Wealthy.
structure.
Power structure. Who said wealthy?
I did.
Yeah, I think that's right. We think about patrons, you go to the Kennedy Center. I
Mm.
don't anymore, but when I used to, you look at the back and I always look to see, who has donated to make this production possible. And it tends to be people of means who philanthropically want to be generous and benevolent. So if he were a patron, as Amy Jill suggests, that's just another layer of texture to who
Mm.
is.
I, I,
Go ahead.
I've kind of read this a little bit in the opposite way, that he certainly was all of those things, the pillar of the synagogue and part of the power structure. And Jesus, we've been reading, was outside the power structure and challenging it.
Mhm.
And it is most unlikely. It was a big humiliation for this guy to be so desperate that I'm going to try the faith healer over here.
Beautiful.
Like
Yep.
that.
I don't think that's opposite at all. I think that's exactly the point. I think we're meant to see them coming. You know how I always like to put things on stage. So if I were the director mounting this as a production, I would make it very visible their distinction, be it in terms of their positioning on the stage or their costume or whatever. And I think that's exactly right. And the fact that Luke talks about Jairus falling at Jesus's feet, that's a full-bodied motion, right? He doesn't just down, he falls at Jesus's feet and he pleads with him. He doesn't just say, would you mind, right? So there, as you said, there's this desperation and there's a lot of energy in that. Yeah, totally agree.
There are no atheists in foxholes.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say the same thing, Fred, but
Yeah.
glad you did it for me.
In Mark, there's even a little bit more that he comes in and tells about the daughter and says, "Come and lay your hands on her so
Mm,
that she may be well, made well, and live." So there's
mm,
actually a Jairus is, I have faith in you, or I believe in Jesus, you can make her well, which Luke
Beautiful.
takes out
yeah,
there.
which is interesting, right? That he does that, and Luke's the physician. You might expect that he would focus on that. Any Again, none of us was there, I don't think. None of us has an answer key, even though we've got notes and we've got Amy Jill and all that. What's your theology? What's your interpretation of this? Why might Luke have omitted, since he does track so closely with Mark in other ways, why do you think Luke might have omitted that? Any ideas?
Well, and there's more. Uh,
Oh, wait,
on
there's
this same
more.
on this same point, when he talks about the woman in Mark, the woman thinks in her head, "If I touch even his garments, I
Hmm.
shall be made well." Luke
Mm.
cuts that out. I mean, so both of these people in Mark have expressed a belief that Luke has taken out. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I mean, it struck me.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know why either. Well, I know I don't know. I don't have that gnosis. I don't even necessarily have a speculation. I think it's an interesting question, though. Does anyone have any ideas, speculations?
This could be an editorial choice to make the story more direct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that both of the persons that are healed are female,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure where that goes, and the daughter is obviously highly treasured, which we haven't seen a lot of the daughter being treasured in scripture.
Absolutely. And once again, we've talked before about how Luke seems to have this particular concern for the women, and he will bring the women into the story in ways that the other canonical gospelers don't necessarily do. And um, so I think the juxtaposition, just leaving it, he had an only daughter about 12 years old, and she was dying. I mean, dramatic, right? I mean, so in some ways, it doesn't even need to be said. He falls down at Jesus's feet. We know why, right? Anybody would guess why he wants Jesus to come to his house. Well, let's go on and talk about the woman in the middle, and then we'll put it
Mhm.
all together. So, Kim, you were saying, can you want to repeat what you said before?
Oh, I was just finding it curious that when Jesus is touched by the woman, and obviously she's very faithful, but the power had gone out from him.
Hmm.
And I guess he's sharing power with her, and maybe that's what it happens with the faithful. Maybe they flow back and forth. I don't know, but I just thought it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I was struck by that same thing. When you think about Jesus doing miracles, you have this this idea that Jesus will think about the situation, consider who's asking or what could be gained, and it will sort of be a considered judgment, right? Here, it sounds like it's like a battery losing power. There was no
Mm-hmm.
thought, there was no judgment, there was no assessment of the situation. It's just, it happened automatically. And Jesus just recognized sort of that it had already happened, and he didn't even know who had done it. So that's a very different way of thinking about
Yeah,
miracles than the
Mm,
way
certainly is.
about miracles, right?
absolutely. I noticed the power had gone out from me. Now, let me ask you a question about power going out from Jesus. Do you think, when you read that, do you hear that Jesus loses some power in it going to the woman, or that, like a faucet, water just comes out, that power just comes out? Um, is there a deficit in Jesus as a result of healing her?
No.
I look at it as electrical metaphor where you have a circuit
Mm-hmm.
where he's sharing power but loses nothing.
Ah, good. Let's just see.
That's 21st century.
Yeah, clearly, yes. That's verse 46. Let's just see if the Greek. Do you care about your sandstone, anybody? Power had gone out of me. Let's just see. Exerchomai. To come from physically, to be born of. I like that image. Emanate, issue. Yeah. I was aware that power, let's see, what's the word for power? Dunamis, strength, power, ability, virtue. Okay.
Power for performing miracles.
Yeah. So what strikes you about, let's focus on the middle paragraph, if you don't mind, for a moment. What strikes you in addition to, so Jesus notices the power going out of him. That always strikes me as well.
Mhm.
What else catches your attention?
That the healing was immediate and she knew it. That doesn't sound like modern medicine, but take this pills for 3 months and we'll see where we are. Yeah.
Well, or presumably where she was bleeding was not, publicly accessible, shall we say?
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. Knowing what we do, I've been reading a lot of Leviticus this week for my Old Testament class. Knowing what we do about Jewish purity codes,
Mm.
a woman with a flow of blood, where should she be?
Not amongst the people.
In the hut or
In
the
the
tent.
Not touching a
tent.
man.
Yeah, she shouldn't even be out of her house, right? She should be locked up. Well, not locked, but she should be uh sheltering in place. She should be out of the
Quarantining.
quarantine. Yeah,
Good word. Yeah.
those terms, a word that's tender for us. And so, and think about this, suffering from a flow of blood for 12 years. As you think about this woman, what words might describe her just off the top of your head? No wrong answers.
Anemic.
Anemic.
Outcast, isolated.
Yes, outcast, isolated. What else?
Desperate.
Desperate.
Does the number 12 have any significance?
Ah, good, very good question.
Wasn't that about the age of the daughter?
Yeah,
Yeah.
look right up above. Jairus fell at Jesus' feet and began pleading with him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years old, and she was dying. So 12 years ago, this young girl was born, and this woman began her journey of this seemingly incurable flow of blood.
Mhm.
What do we know about 12 in the Bible?
12 apostles,
12,
12 disciples,
Tribes
I
of
mean.
Israel.
12 tribes.
12 tribes.
Yep.
12
12
disciples.
disciples.
Yep. How many sons does Jacob have?
Probably
I'm
12.
guessing 12.
Oh,
That's very clever, John.
those 12 become the 12 tribes of Israel. Exactly. So there's something to the number 12. What, can anyone connect those dots?
The magical number.
Okay. As we know in the Bible, certain numbers, I talked about 7 on Sunday. We know 40 means a really long time. 12, what does 12 suggest?
The girl probably had just reached maturity at
Mhm.
12.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When we think of Jesus and 12 disciples, when we think of the 12 tribes of Israel, what do you think?
Never thought about that.
Yeah, well, I'll just throw that out there. And if someone has a thought about it, we'll come back to it. So why do you think in this Lucan sandwich, based on a Markan sandwich, it's a Lucan special. Why do you think the Jairus's daughter and the woman with the flow, why, why are those two connected by the number 12?
You wonder if she had anything to do with Jairus.
Maybe. Could be.
No idea.
Jairus wouldn't have been touching her. He was unclean.
She was in, yeah.
He wouldn't even probably have entered her house.
Any other thoughts about, yeah, it's not a throwaway thing that Jairus's daughter is 12 and the woman has been bleeding for 12 years.
Maybe it's the mother. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
That's what Elin was implying. Yeah.
Mm.
Could be. We don't know.
Both of them. I mean, if the 12-year-old is reaching maturity, it is puberty time. Reading too much into this, but I'm looking at that and thinking, having had some experience with 12-year-olds with strange health problems, that it may be something like an eating disorder, because the first thing which would account for her weakness unto death, and the first thing Jesus does is to feed her.
That's a good point.
And so we might look at it in that context, but it would be very real as a threat to the life of the child. They would see it, and they would be helpless against it, as we know with eating disorders.
So her life would be draining away, wouldn't it?
As she's becoming a woman.
Yeah.
And this is a way of avoiding becoming a woman, because the flows of the menstruation doesn't even start if you're starving.
Interesting. Wow, that's a great exegesis. Really interesting interpretation, Ray. Never would have thought about that. I love that. That's really got my brain moving.
Well, it's interesting that they record information without our context that becomes alive again when we have even more context to view it. Not that our view is correct, but we can see that it is still something that is plausible to us, and we can connect with it in our own way, in our own language.
Although my reaction to give her something to eat, I sort of remember Jesus, when he appeared on the shore, he wanted the fishes to show that he was really there. It's not, the spirit returned. Okay, she's back. Eat something to show that you, in fact, are alive.
That works too.
Yep. Beautiful.
I feel like if they were commenting on the Jewish girl being, at some age of maturity, it would have been the number 13. Only because that's so significant in Judaism for that transition from childhood to adulthood.
Interesting. And so, bearing that in mind, she's 12. The woman has been bleeding for 12 years. Let's not worry about the numerology of 12, but what's the narrator doing? What's the text doing here by putting these two stories together?
There's a connectivity or a cycle of life or something happening, you know.
Mm-hmm. And so when it says at the beginning of the second paragraph, as he went, the crowds pressed in on him. Where's Jesus going?
To the
with
daughter.
Jairus to his house, the
Yeah.
daughter.
And so this is an interruption on the way to Jairus's house, right? Um, so interesting, Luke says, though she had spent all she had on physicians, no one could cure her. And let's just see. Let's see. Is that L? Other ancient authorities lack that line, that phrase, or clause, I should say, though she'd spent all she had on physicians. Okay. So maybe Luke included that, maybe he didn't. But so she had a flow of blood for 12 years and no one could cure her. Even if it didn't say she'd spent all she had on physicians, the implication is the no one, that the doctors didn't know what to do with her. So she
Mark
comes.
said that she spent all her money on physicians.
Yeah, Mark.
Mm-hmm. So she comes up behind Jesus, touches the fringe of his cloak, and immediately, there's a good Markan word, right? Immediately her flow of blood stopped. And then, as we talked about, Jesus notices that power has gone out from him. So he knows that someone has touched him. Peter, being Peter, says, what are you talking about? There are all these people around you. How can you possibly ask who touched me? And then how about this next part? When the woman realized that she could not remain hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him. She declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. And Jesus said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." How does that help interpret the first paragraph with Jairus falling down at Jesus's feet? Because they're intimately connected.
I guess it's a sign of reverence and faith.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I also think it's interesting how there's the word daughter and
Mm-hmm.
child. All
Mm-hmm.
of these are, that she is
Beautiful.
a woman and yet she is a daughter,
Good. Good, good, good.
like a child of God or whatever.
Excellent. And for Jesus to be saying this, she may be older than he is, and yet he calls her daughter.
Yeah, he didn't call her sister,
Yep,
like
exactly. Excellent. Great point, Kim. What about that when she realized she could not remain hidden? What do you think about that?
do you think it's because she was healed and she was so sickly before that people would notice the transition?
I thought it's because she shouldn't have been there, except for her faith, that she knew that she would be healed, but she shouldn't have been out in public by according to the regulations of the.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. And when Jesus said, someone who touched me, someone touched me, she somehow feels compelled to out herself, right? She
Yeah.
probably could have remained hidden, truth be told, if the crowd was as big as it implies, right? But for some reason, she decides, I'm going to declare myself as the one who did this.
So
She's
don't
also the
you,
one who was healed, and she is saying, a miracle has happened to me.
Yep, exactly. She's testifying, isn't she?
Yeah.
don't you think he knows who touched him and he is like urging them to come forward?
Could be.
I mean, it just seems like he's
Yeah.
more omniscient than
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
I
just
mean, she
happened?
probably feels like he's gonna, if he is going to, be mad about this, you might as well get it over with.
Hmm. Do you think he's mad?
No, well, I don't. I think he's aware.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he notices that he's lost some power or shared some power, it's only a second or two before he figures out who the source of that was. So,
Uh,
Yeah, you might as well come clean.
you might
yeah.
as well complain. Yeah.
She's on borrowed time before it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something here about um her sharing her own story rather than waiting for somebody else to say you're the one. Which I think is very powerful, right? And claiming the fact that she has been healed. And to, as Elon said, let's bear in mind she ought not to have been there in the first place. And so, um, she declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. She probably mentioned the blood, I would think. I don't think I mean, maybe she spoke in general terms. I was sick and now I'm well, amazing.
Yeah.
Grace. I was blind, but now I see. But I think the text implies that there was some detail there. And wow, how powerful is that to tell her own story? Um, and then he gets, then she is called a daughter whose faith has made her well. Go in peace.
Mhm.
Before we come back again to Jairus's daughter, and there's that, that daughter language to Kim's point, that's connective tissue between the woman and the daughter. I've got a couple of pieces of art, of course, that have to
Yay.
do, yay, to do with this woman.
That's an old, wow.
This is 3rd century from the catacombs. Y'all
Oh
know
my.
what catacombs are? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
What are they?
wow.
burial crypts in
Underground.
Underground
tombs.
where?
Rome.
Rome.
Rome. And what did Christians do in the catacombs?
They had services there when
Exactly. When it was not safe
Mm.
in public, they would worship in the catacombs. And that's why there's, in the catacombs, there's a lot of religious art. So here we have Christ and the woman with the issue of blood, 3rd century. What do you notice about this particular piece of art?
It's not a crowd, it's just her.
Yes, no crowd.
His hand gesture is a giving gesture, I think,
Hmm.
Yeah.
or behold.
Yeah. It's like when Pilate says of Jesus, behold the man, right?
Yeah,
Ta-da, here
ecce homo.
she is. Yeah, exactly. Any other observations? Chuck, from an artistic point of view, is there anything we should notice about this?
The way Jesus is grabbing the cloak uh, and the way he's sort of posed there suggests he's kind of walking along
Hmm.
as this happens.
There's movement, right?
Yeah. The other thing, just a purely artistic thing, if you want to show movement, you one of the sort of the tricks is to have the person there grab or take hold of their garments. And
Hmm.
you see this a lot in the 16th and 17th century stuff. And this is 3rd century. So you think how much was lost and sort of rediscovered
Mm-hmm.
from from third century, this is a very sophisticated piece with the folds and the proportions, the movement. It's very sophisticated, for that. And that was sort of lost for a long time.
That's really helpful. I love when
Thank
you
you.
add these observations and these technical details that I have no idea because I'm not an artist and not all of us are artists. Thank you. The other thing that strikes me is this line, this diagonal line that goes from Jesus's head all the way down.
Oh, I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yes.
And the fact that he is pointing, behold, he is gesturing toward her. There's a connectedness between the two of them, and he is, he's honoring her, I think, in doing that.
Yeah,
And
I saw that line too, but a thing that jumped out at me was that it's not quite straight. It's
yep,
S-shaped.
yep,
The thing, yeah, and that's a good point. If you draw a line on both figures, neither one are vertical. They're all at an angle, which
yes.
again generates energy
Right.
and movement in the piece. And again,
Power went out from me. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
It's hard to tell, but I think I'm seeing facial expressions, and I'm seeing a peaceful expression on his face and maybe a surprised or grateful one on hers. I'm not
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You
there's something
definitely see it
going on
on
there.
his. It's a little harder to see.
Um, Let me just pull up this analysis. I'll read it quickly for us. This late 3rd century painting is one of only 2 surviving scenes in the Roman catacombs of the healing of the woman with an issue of blood. The woman's left knee is bent and her right knee is touching the ground, as if she has just dropped into this position. The painter captures the very moment of the woman's healing, as told in Matthew and in Mark and Luke, which takes place just after Jesus speaks as a result of his deliberate action. Jesus's mantle is plain and undyed, worn in a fashion typical of the time without luxurious trappings or color. The string which the woman grasps at its hem, down here, is the artist's interpretation of what is referred to as the edge, Greek crespedon, of Jesus's mantle, not mentioned in Mark's account. This was something used as a technical term for what in Hebrew is called I can't pronounce it, tzitzit, a tassel on mantles of Jewish men. The artist is very unusually attempting to render this feature, though not accurately, as the tassel would not have been where the woman seizes it. Despite the painting's simplicity, the crowd mentioned repeatedly in the gospel accounts has not been included, as Mark said. The vivid moment in this work implies a poignant interaction between the two people shown. Christ is smiling, someone mentioned that, and is gesturing backwards with his right hand towards the woman as he swings around. There's that movement. The woman's wide eyes in the painting tell us not only of her fear, but also of her wonder. It's almost as if she's feeling the impact of the sensation of being healed. If that's so, then just as he feels the energy, the power going out from him, she feels it coming into her. At least if we are to approach it as this artist has. In terms of the gospel story, the painter asks viewers to exclude from consideration all the other people mentioned, the crowd, Jesus' disciples, and focus purely on the extraordinary moment of the woman's initiative. She's so full of faith and so assertive that she grasps hold of Jesus's clothing as he walks. She's rewarded by his compassionate response and miraculous cure. Identifying with her, we too may be wide-eyed in remembering this miracle. So that's that. And I wanted to share one more. Go ahead.
One quick comment. I mean,
Yeah.
it's back to the phrase that jumped out at me in that commentary was deliberate action. And
Uh-huh.
going back again to the way the gospel said it, it didn't sound like deliberate action. It sounded like almost an unconscious reflex on the part of Jesus.
Mm, excellent. Well, here's another version, another rendering of this story. This is from the 6th century in Ravenna, Italy. A mosaic. I have never been to Ravenna. Has anyone here been? I desperately want to go there and see the mosaics. They're supposed to be spectacular. What do you observe here?
Well, we're dealing, 3 centuries have brought the church into a different position. We now have decoration. Jesus has sprouted a halo. The more deification and less human context. So,
That's
Do
a
you
good
prefer
point.
the other one, Ray?
pardon me?
Do you
Yeah.
prefer the first one? I do too.
Yeah.
Elin, were you going to say something?
No, I agree with Ray. Yeah.
Oh. I'm sorry, Elin. That
Sounded painful, Elin.
Any other observations about this one?
There was a halo in the other one, but this one is much, much more defined. And as Ray said, I think this is the theology now coming forward in a peaceful.
A higher Christology, right? That Jesus is in fact divine. The other one, see if I can go back to it. Oops, wrong direction. Yeah, the other one, it's very subtle.
Right.
It's understated.
I wouldn't have noticed it.
Yeah, and it almost looks like he's just, got big hair. But here it's really defined. It's much more elaborate in the
Well, and
So
with
it
the
brings
woman
in
in
the other
front of
characters too.
Yeah.
It brings in Peter, James, and John and Jairus, I'm assuming are the
yeah, I would
people
think
who
so.
were there.
Yeah.
with the
Jackie,
woman in front of him, there's not much mystery about who touched him.
That's right.
and stylistically, the facial expressions have gone frozen
Yeah.
into that kind of Greek icon style.
Right.
The thing that I noted, yeah, and on that about the icon, you see all this gold, right? The thing that strikes me, and I don't know what to do with it necessarily, maybe one of you can help me interpret it, is this vast space here in the middle. There, yes, it's between them, but I don't know. There's just this big gap. And the previous one, it feels much more intimate and connected to me. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. I'm not sure what to do with that, but I notice it.
Isn't it that the disciples are avoiding her?
They should be, right? Excellent. Well, let's very quickly see what the commentary says about this. I actually haven't read this. Okay. Here in a background of sparkling gold tesserae, a woman veiled and dressed in beige brown clothing is shown kneeling. Her forearms are stretched forwards from underneath a cloth towards a young Christ, beardless and with long golden curly hair. This Christ is the conventional attributes of an emperor. Interesting.
Bingo.
It's royal. A purple tunic with long sleeves edged in gold stripes is overlaid with another with golden stripes running from shoulder to hem. Over this is a purple mantle. His right hand is stretched out authoritatively. Even his halo, a gold cross with blue gems, is worn like a crown. Behind Christ is a bearded man dressed in white with purple trimming. He gestures as if explaining something, but what? This 6th century image forms part of a series of 13 panels depicting Christ's miracles and parables in the upper register of a wall mosaic in Sant'Apollinare Nuovo in Ravenna. Christ's royal clothing identifies him as God's kingly Messiah, the divine ruler on earth. Very different from the much more human looking Jesus in the previous one. The white clad man, also found elsewhere in the series, represents an evangelist. Oh, maybe that's not Jairus then. I thought it was. This indicates that the scene is only truly understood by reference to the gospel story. But in fact, this story is blended with another, and the key is in the cloth that covers the woman's hands. Unrecognized hitherto, this is the earliest visual depiction of the story of Veronica's cloth, as told in the most ancient versions of the 7th and 8th century, Vindicta Salvatoris and Cura Sanitatis. The hemorrhaging woman was understood to have been named Berenice or Veronica. As a reward for her faith, Christ effects a miraculous self-portrait on the cloth. Christ's gesture here then invites Veronica to give him the cloth. It's not a blessing, since elsewhere in the panels, Christ blesses with 2 fingers. Here his hand is wide open, fingers apart. Ultimately, this asks us to think of the power and generosity of Christ, miracle maker supreme. So I always heard about the Veronica as part of the stations of the cross, right? When
Right.
Yeah.
she
Yes.
gives
Veronica,
off, and it's almost like a shroud, a burial shroud. Anyway, any other thoughts about this?
It's odd that the guy in white is said to be an evangelist,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's no mention.
Mm-mm.
So
So I think, given what the commentator said, is I think he appears in several panels, and so he may be kind of the connective tissue throughout all these scenes, right?
he's the storyteller.
Yeah,
Story.
exactly. The
Yeah.
story. So
Yeah.
he's not in the gospel story, but he holds all these pieces of art together.
Okay, that
Um, So, you know where Ray and I stand. Does anyone else have an opinion about these 2 pieces of art? Does anyone have a preference?
I like the first one with just the 2 of them. It
Mm.
just the intimacy of the exchange of power or whatever it is.
I agree with Kim.
Mm. Yeah, the intimacy, I think, is really striking here.
Mm.
Did anyone prefer this one? Yeah, it's so stylized.
Yeah.
And in thinking back to what Chuck shared with us about the movement in the first one, and when you think how old that is, how early it was in the Christian story, right? In the life of the church, that's just really powerful to me. All right.
Well, if art is like literature, maybe the closer the art is to the time, the depiction might be more accurate. I don't
Great.
know. How we talk about that in writing,
Yep.
the closer to the historical moment, I don't know, maybe it becomes more accurate.
Very good question. Very good point. Well, let's close the sandwich then. Going back to Jairus's daughter, having had this interruption on the way to the house as he went, crowds are pressed in on him. And then again, good transitional language here, Luke. So Jesus has just announced that the woman's faith has made her well. While he was still speaking, there's another interruption. Someone from the synagogue comes up and interrupts the scene with the woman to announce, your daughter's dead. Don't bother Jesus with this. What do you all think?
Seems somewhat insensitive. I mean, if the man has just lost his daughter, you would think the message would focus on that rather than don't bother Jesus.
Yeah. What does that
Good point.
suggest? I think that's an excellent point. What might the subtext be here?
That the story is all about Jesus. It's being written from a very Jesus-oriented point of view.
I think that's maybe the people around Jesus they still don't know his generosity, I guess. Do you know what I mean? Because they're shielding him versus,
Mm.
I don't know.
This person is from the synagogue leader's house, so maybe
Mhm.
not so much connected with Jesus, nevertheless, kind of almost scolding Jairus into Fred's.
Mhm.
That person would fail pastoral care 101, right? I'm reminded though here of, you remember in John's gospel when Jesus goes to Mary and Martha's house because Lazarus is dying.
Mhm.
He delays and Lazarus dies. And Jesus says, take me to where he's buried. And it's probably Martha who says, I can't remember which one, probably Martha, who says, there will be a stench, because it's been 4 days. And so once again, trying to dissuade Jesus. And he says, no, I'm going in. Lazarus, come out. And we know the rest of that story. So to me, I hear an echo there. It's a similar impulse to, don't bother Jesus. He's got other things to do. He's got other fish to fry on the beach. Um, and so, yeah. So despite that, Jesus moves forward and says,
Thought,
yeah, please.
we have two examples there of Lazarus and Jairus's daughter of being raised from the dead, however we consider that. And then there is the question of the words of the thief on the cross. You've saved others, can you not save yourself?
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh.
And as our story goes, oh yeah, he can, and did.
Oh, I love that connection, Ray. Beautiful. I wonder if that language, your daughter's dead, don't trouble the teacher any longer, is thrown in there. And it does seem very insensitive. I wonder if it's there to point to us, as the reader, the listener, that, P.S., not really dead. Death is not the end of this story. Stay tuned. If that were really the case, I don't know that line would be in there. I don't know. I feel like it's got a purpose. It has that sentence has a mission to point us to the fact that she's not really going to be dead. Both stories here, the woman who comes out of the crowd, declares herself, and then here, child, get up. She stood up at once. There's a restoration to community, right? Because just as there's the prohibition against being with a woman who is menstruating, so too there's a prohibition against touching a dead body, right? And so, or
No, I don't think that's true because the rules for, you had to prepare a body for burial.
Women did that.
Yeah.
Well, but there were rules about it. You had to purify yourself afterwards because you don't want to bring death into the presence of the living God.
Right.
But you were not necessarily, unclean in the sense that you needed purification, but you didn't need a removal of sin.
Right. Well, yeah, there was no indication about sin here, but just the idea that Jesus, taking her by the hand. Luke is includes that detail that there's physical contact, which, and he's not the family, it would be the family. And in Leviticus, it talks about, because I've been reading a lot of Leviticus this week, talks about
You're not thinking of imposing this on us, are you, Patty?
I absolutely. And that's our next Bible study. Oh boy, we're not doing that, I promise you. But it's the family who would take care of the dead body, those closest to the person who's died. And as you say, then they would have to bathe, and by nighttime they would be restored to community. But Jesus touches her. So in both cases, there's this transgressive action, right? Going against the norm. And even when Ray was talking about the very first paragraph, Jairus, the leader of the synagogue, over against, in this corner, Jesus, who is on the outskirts, who is, who transgresses all kinds of rules and norms. So we have this juxtaposition here.
In both cases, the miracle takes place through some kind of physical contact.
Yep.
Right? The hem or the hand.
Yep, exactly. Beautiful. Well, any last thoughts about any of this? Next week, we will pick up with the mission of the 12. So just to locate us in Luke's gospel, we have been here for a very long time, Jesus beginning to teach in addition to his healing, of course. So beginning next week, we're really going to talk about how Jesus forms the community of faith, beginning with the mission of the disciples. So I look forward to having that conversation with y'all. And Mark, you will be in Hawaii.
It'll be fun and sun in Hawaii.
How long will you be gone?
2 weeks.
Nice. Well, we will miss you, but we also know that you won't be thinking too much about us.
You just have to get up, Mark, you got to get up at 6:30 and you can zoom in.
Exactly. I see no problem with that. Before going to the beach, you've got an hour. Anna Maria can sleep in. You can do Bible study and then have. I think John and I have figured it all out.
To be clear, it's a 6-hour difference. So
Yes.
5:30.
5:30.
And you need a cup of coffee before that. So
all right, beloveds. Mark, have a great trip. I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah.
Post photos, please.
you bet.
And I'll see everyone else soon, I hope. Be well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everybody.
Bye.